kids, welcome to another episode of GLEN YAPS. We are about to engage in a drum head change on my recording drum set, which is a Yamaha Power Recording Custom kit that's part of my studio environment. I've been bouncing back and forth between different drum heads on this kit. For the most part, for many years, I've played Remo Clear Emperors on the top. On the bass drums, I use the Aquarian, and I forget the model off the top of my head, but I've used them for many years. And on the snare on this particular kit, I'm using a Aquarian high energy head on a 1958 Slingerland snare, which is one of my favorite snares, and it records great. I also have a custom one I built myself that I use Aquarian high energy heads on as also, and it's if I remember right, 14 ply maple. So those two drums are my main go-to snares in the studio. I do use other ones, as you've seen in some of the videos I've posted just pertaining to my snare drum collection. So I've been doing a lot of recording. I had bought some new heads for the kit, but I kept the other ones on because I wanted consistency in the recordings I was doing for other people. So now that I'm done that, I bought a whole round of drum heads to cover the Yamaha kit. I'm just going to show you what we got here. So I'm switching to, on this kit for the first time ever, white coated Remo Ambassadors. The bass drums and the snare are not being changed. They're staying with the Aquarian heads. At least for now, that's what I love. That's the sound that, between the two, the kick and the snare, that's the sound that I love the most. So I'm going to take the top heads off, and I'm going to wax the bearing edges on the drums, give them a little bit of cleaning, and I'm going to do a video of me tuning each drum just to help everybody out. Oops, sorry about that. Just to help everybody out, show what I do for tuning. So with me playing so much and playing jam nights, I get a lot of drummers coming up on stage playing my kit. And the questions always come up is, like, how do you tune these drums, and why do you tune them the way you do? Because a lot of the drummers that come up are just beginners, and a couple of veterans come up too. Because I work studio stuff a lot, the tuning changes for me quite a bit. From my live drum set. I'll be honest though that the snare drum will always be tuned higher than probably what most people like. There was a reason for that. A lot of the bass players I play with have a lot of low end in their rigs, and for me it is pointless to have a snare drum tuned low to compete with the bass player's sound. I've always felt, even when I first started, of the drummers that I loved, their snares always cut through because they were tuned higher. I was never into Steve Gadd's drum tuning. Great drummer. I just was never into his tuning. I just wasn't my thing. But hearing like Dave Clark from Dave Clark 5, his snare drum just cut through beautifully in the mixes, and between him and Keith Moon, when you hear the song "I Can See for Miles" by The Who, Keith Moon's snare drum just cuts through. Like, he does these simple, not simple, but these steady snare fills in that song, and the snare just cut through. So my hearing and taste gravitated to that kind of sound. Buddy Rich, although Buddy Rich, on a lot of occasions, I didn't like his snare sound for whatever. It was just a change of drum or whatever. I always found sometimes his were choked. But on recordings, I definitely, Buddy Rich was definitely an influence. But live, not so much, because, like I say, sometimes it was the snare drum that I didn't like that he was playing. So I know a lot of drummers in town tune really, really low, and they use double ply heads, sometimes double pinstripes, really thick heads. In my early years, when pinstripes came out, it was like, wow, this is cool, this is something different, so we all tried it. And when pinstripes were brand new, yeah, they have a good sound and an interesting sound. But they do seem to pitch the drums a little bit lower, make them a little fatter. But they also choke the drums for volume. They choke the drums for sustain, and I also found them difficult to play, especially when they started getting a little bit used. So the pinstripe thing I fell out of love with pretty quick. I did move over to the Emperor clears, and I'll be honest, I used those for years. And I found those, when you tune them high, they didn't sound very good. They were definitely made for a mid-range and to a lower tuning. The disadvantage of double ply heads, and I've gotten screwed on this a number of times, is sometimes when the two heads are glued together, they're not glued together perfectly, and there ends up being what I call a dead zone. So the skin becomes a dud. It doesn't resonate whatsoever. I've had brand new floor tom skins on my 18-inch floors, which my 18 Yamahas, the Birch, they are massive sounding. And I've found I've got a dud drum head, and there'd be no sustain. It would just choke it right away, and you couldn't, you could take it back and to the music store and say, this is a dud, and they would go, what do you mean? What do you mean a dud? So you would never get a new head. So you'd have having to buy another one. So I got tired of that. I was starting to get more and more problems with that. In the studio, they work pretty good for some stuff, but I found I was always adding high end in the studio to the drums, which I wanted the drums to be their natural sound. And so I experimented quite a bit with this Yamaha kit, just on a tom or two, when I was playing live back in the day with this kit. I used to break it down to just like a 4-piece kit, sometimes a double floor tom kit. So I started playing around with drum heads, and basically the single ply heads seem to make that drum set sing the most. And I've actually found that with a lot of drum sets that I've owned or own presently. So in comparison, like so when I'm playing live, on some of the kits right now, I'm using clear Ambassador Remos, and I find I get my stick definition in, and I can really get a good bottom end out of the floor toms. The present kit I'm using right now is another Yamaha kit, and I've got white coated Emperors on it, and I bought the kit that way. So these are the existing heads that were on it, and they really choke like a coated Emperor really chokes the sustain and the projection of the drum. It's going to suffer in projection when you go double ply. You may like the sound playing the kit, but where you gain maybe a little bit in the low end, you lose projection. So what happens is, and I see this with a lot of drummers, as soon as they go double ply of any kind, plus adding the coated factor, is the drums get choked more and the drummer plays harder. So the only advantage you gain is your pitch. You get a lower pitch, and if that makes you happy, that's fine. But I'm trying to look at when I'm choosing the drum heads, I'm looking for the happy medium that A, I don't have to play hard, B, I get resonance out of the drums. I'm not a fan of choke drums whatsoever. I want to be able to have a drum that sings a long note and then be able to dial that in via any means but double ply heads. I'm at that point now. And then 3, I want to be able to pitch the drum in the higher registers and also the lowest registers and still not lose stick attack or sustain. I've talked to a number of drummers around town, and I've listened to their tunings, and most of the tunings are just not my thing, because I play in the studio and I play live. There's 2 different animals there that I've got to deal with, and I'll be honest, low drums in the studio just don't do it for me. They don't do it in the recordings. They just don't seem to whet my taste buds, we'll say. I'm from, like I say, the 60s sound, and most of those 60 drummers were influenced by the jazz drummers from years previously, so their drums are at a medium tuning. Now, don't get me wrong, I still like having low end, so the bass drums I work differently, it's hard to explain, but I've tried different things with muffling and then to bring the pitch down, but in the end I want the snare and the kick drum to be a totally different beast compared to the toms in the kit. Some guys like it all universal, where they want everything to sound like it came from the same kit, but for me, the kick drum and the snare are the majority of things in a song, and I want those to have their own language. So I've experimented with heads, the Aquarian heads I love on the bass drums on this kit, and I use them on I have a 26-inch Slingerland bass drum, big kick drum, old vintage kit, and that head sounds great on that kit. I also use Evans, the one with the plastic guide that you can put a foam ring in. I find that really interesting and pretty controlled. I also use Remo, the calfskin fiber skins, I think, yeah, fiber skin 3s. I really like those, and I might try that on a few of my other kits. I've tried a number of bass drum heads. What I don't like pinstripes on the bass drums. Emperors I can get away with and not be too unhappy, but a lot of my kits are single ply Remo ambassadors. So again, it's just a personal choice. I don't want to play hard, and I notice a lot of drummers like just beating the living shit out of the drums, whether that's theatrics or not. I just find with a double ply head, and if it's coated and you're beating the shit out of them, the drum's choked all I hear out front is just a single, and I don't hear sustain. I don't hear the drum sing after. So I definitely don't like that tuning. Now, in the big band days, they would tune medium to high on a big drum, and that drum would project like a cannon. The sustain would be shortened because you're tuning high, but to bring the pitch down, they would use bigger drums. It's like John Bonham was using, I think, 13 and 14 inch tom and 16 and 18 floors, and his tuning is jazz bass. You can tell it's same as, you know, a lot of the other drummers of that era. They were influenced by the jazz guys before them, and then put their own signature on it. But I never I know when I play with a double ply head and they're tuned to really, really low, the stick sinks in so much that I don't find there's life. There's nothing coming back from the drum that makes me happy, except for, okay, I like that low pitch. But then again, I would go with an 18-inch floor to get that lower pitch and still have the tuning of the drum a little bit higher. So I mean, it's all a matter of preference. I know the vintage kits that I have, they'll all have, in my collection, they'll all have single heads. That's the way they were built. It's the way they were designed. Same with some of the Japanese, what they call stencil kits that I own, the rare ones. They are all single ply. They sound best with single ply heads. I've tried other ones. They're just not. It's just not a good sound. It sounds, to me, if I use double ply on the cheap Japanese stencil kits from the 60s and early 70s, they sound like water balloons. Originally, their bearing edges weren't very good, so that made double ply heads even worse, because trying to seat the double ply heads, so when you press on them while you're tuning and you hear the cracking of the head, the glue and everything setting in, and then getting the bend on the edge for the bearing edge. With bearing edges that aren't very good, double ply heads are the worst thing for those cheap Japanese drums, unless you redo the bearing edges, which is what I normally do now. But I still love single ply white coated on those old drums. And when you put a good bearing edge, those drums sing. I just did a video on a tempo kit, and the drums they sound fantastic. And I've recorded them once, and it was, what a sound, just amazing sound. Just a fluke that this drum set just pops with big huge tone. So again, just a matter of preference. I find when I play live, I want the drums to cut through the rumble. We're tuned down half a step, so that bottom end coming from the guitars and the bass, I mean, it's hard to fight through as a drummer. I'm talking on stage. And so I try to tune the snare with a crack to it. I've been known to go really tight on certain things, for certain tunings, for certain applications. But I do like the skin to have a little bit of give. On my snare drums, I tune the bottom higher than the top, and the same goes for the toms. I like the bottoms to be a bit above the pitch I want, and I want the tops to be at the pitch that I want. I just find you can go less or more at that point, and the drum will still sound good. On my snare drum, whether I'm using a bell brass or a wood or a fiberglass snare, I will tune the snare higher with the new head, and if the song needs a little bit fatter, less lower pitch, then I will take my drum key before the song, and I will take the two lugs closest to my stomach area. I'll take those two lugs and back them off a full turn, half turn to a full turn, and that will actually drop the pitch of that drum, just those two lugs. So I still have a tight zone in the center. I still have my ghost stroke area to the left, or to the right, which is basically 8 o'clock, 4 o'clock, and 8 o'clock is where I usually go. If you see my drum skins where I wear patterns on, that's where I normally wear for the ghost strokes, which is to the outer edge, and then the center. So those two lugs closest to my stomach, they don't affect where I'm hitting, so I can tune those up and down for pitch. I do that same thing in the studio. Not a lot of people know that you don't have to retune the whole drum. You know, for the most part, you can actually, I kind of compare it to a, what do they call that? Is it a hip shot on a bass guitar where he goes from E to drop D? Is it a hip shot switch? I kind of compare it to that. Just two turns on the two lugs closest to you, and your drum will tune down enough to give you a lower pitch without affecting the feel of the drum head. Now, I don't play drums with the rebound bounce. My fingers, because I've showed in other videos, I control the down and up motion. So a lower tuned head where it's almost like a soup bowl doesn't affect my playing, but it does affect my ears, because I don't like the sound of a drum that's just so low that it's not giving me a good sustaining note. So I know when I've built the Christmas kits, I tune them all high, and there's a reason why I tune them all high. It's because they're beginner drummers that usually get these kits, and I notice a lot of guys go up on stage that are using these kits for the toy stock show, where I give away some of these kits. They'll start tuning these drums down. The unfortunate part is beginner drummers, they dive into the heads, and if they're loose and low tunings, they will dent the skins before, the first week. Professionals, they know to angle their drums at the right angle, so when you hit it with a stick, it doesn't dent the skin. But I find if you're denting skins, you're playing too hard. Doesn't matter if you're a pro or not, you're playing too hard, and or your drums are not at the right angle. So I always tune my drums, like I say, a little bit higher and a little bit flatter, and that usually drives people nuts. But like I said, I'm going back to the jazz guys and the 60s drummers. This drum set here, the drums are a bit taller, longer, we'll say. And so the angle of the drums are a bit higher because I sit really low, so the drum angle is a little more ramped, but I'm also sitting lower at the ramp, and I can't get the drums flatter without causing a position problem for me, because I don't want to be going over top of the drum and have my elbows out. I'm a finger player, so I like to basically just go up the ramp like this, and the same with the floor toms. So that way the drum heads last a long time without me stabbing them and denting them. In fact, I don't think I've ever really dented drum heads. First of all, they cost too much, so I kind of take pride in not beating the shit out of them, and I want them to last as long as possible because they're not cheap either. So that's the scoop, folks. That's my take on it. I'm switching over to the coated ambassadors this time because I want to try something I've never done on this particular kit before. I've tried all different kinds of heads, but I've never tried coated ambassadors. And one thing about the coated ambassador, they're going to bring up more stick definition, and we'll play around with the pitch, but I didn't want to change them because of these projects I was doing, because then if the drum sound is drastically different in the recording, if I'm doing 3 songs for somebody and all of a sudden, boof, that one song I changed the drum heads on and now I can't get the drum sound I had before. So I didn't want to be faced with that. I wanted to be able to at least get the recordings done with this consistent sound I've already got the board set up for, and then go from there with the change of skins. So anyways, so as you can tell, we're going to be changing the 8, the 10, the 12, that 14, and then on the far side a 16 and an 18. The bass drums, and that will be the same as before, which are aquariums. And as you can see, this is one of my old ones from old stock. As you can tell, Remo is so proud of their name, they made them the logo a lot bigger. So I find that a little annoying. I like the old small ones. And we'll go from there. So I'm going to do a video with that, and I might do it broken up into fast segments, like just to go fast through the process. But anytime I talk about what I'm doing to the drum, I'll bring it back to normal speed. But just so you get an idea of what I'm doing, because this drum set takes a while to change all the heads, obviously, because you're talking 6 drums to change heads on. The other ones, the 2 bass drums and the snare, are staying the same. But and who knows, I might change the bass drums if there's a drastic contrast that I don't like between the toms and the bass drums. But yeah, so we'll go from there. So thanks for watching.